Most business owners say they want freedom, but the truth is that their business collapses the second they step away. Over the last few years, I've built a remote team so strong that my businesses run and even grow without me in the day-to-day. I've hired and trained over 100 remote employees across sales, admin, operations, and client delivery. And what I've discovered is that the right systems and the right people can literally replace you in your business. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly how I built my team, the mistakes that I made so you can avoid them, and the lessons that made the biggest difference. So you can stop being the glue that's holding it all together, so you can step away, take a vacation, or just take some time off without your business collapsing. I was fortunate enough to realize that I had to build a team very, very early on when first starting my business. I started my career about 12 years ago in the real estate industry. And at the time I had zero experience in business, zero experience in building teams. And honestly, I didn't even know that I could hire people. That's how naive I was at the time. After about a year and a half of just grinding myself to the bone, cold calling, doing admin, working with clients, running around like crazy, basically doing everything 24/7, 365, and getting to the point where I was completely exhausted, burned out, and honestly think I had adrenal fatigue from doing that, I realized, okay, this cannot be the end all be all. I've got to figure something out. So what I did was I went and studied people who were the top in the industry where I lived. All of these people had built teams around them, and all of them also had great lifestyles where they had freedom to go take a vacation. They would take off early some days if they wanted to. They basically had the flexibility to work as much or as little as they wanted to. And the whole point of having a team was to handle the day-to-day, all of the lower dollar per hour work, and also to go and find clients and work on deals when they weren't even present. They basically built a machine that was making money without them present. So naturally at the time, me being burned out, exhausted, doing everything myself, I looked at that and I was like, well, that looks a lot better than what I'm doing. I want to build a team. I want to have people working for me, getting work done, whether I'm present or not. So I was very fortunate early on in my career to actually burn myself out, funny enough, but also at the same time be exposed to some very wealthy, very successful business owners. And this opened up my awareness to the fact that you cannot do it all yourself. And if you're doing all the work yourself in your business, you didn't build a business. A business is an asset that's making you money and is growing and is getting work done without your involvement. You basically just made yourself a job. You're the equivalent of an employee, except your boss is you, and you get all the risk and all the stress that comes with having a business, essentially just making business ownership not even worth it. So when it came time to start my team, I actually went and first hired some people in the US. The problem with doing this was that my business was very young, it wasn't generating a ton of revenue, and I was putting all my profit into paying my US-based team. This left literally nothing left for me at the end of the day. It also created a bottleneck where I had to make an incrementally larger amount of money to be able to hire additional team members, which ultimately slowed down my growth. I stumbled into hiring my first virtual assistant in the Philippines by pure dumb luck. I was having a conversation with somebody that I know. He told me about how he stopped hiring in the US, only hired offshore. He told me about the cost savings, the benefits, how great the people were, how he was able to do this successfully remotely. And I was like, well, hey, that sounds great. So I did what I did in the first place that I explained in the beginning of the video. I went and copied people who were already doing what I wanted to be doing, who were more successful than me, and I just took their ideas and I made them my own and I iterated on them. The great thing about success and life in general that I've realized over the years is that anything that you want to go accomplish, anything that you want to go succeed at, someone's already done. People have written books on the topics, they've made YouTube videos, hence this video right here that you're learning from. Everyone's probably already lived the life that you're trying to live. Yes, yours is unique, but let's be real, you're not a special snowflake. Most of us are just iterating on lives that people have already lived, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to go and take what they've done, learn from it, and implement it into our own lives. This is what I've been doing throughout my whole career. To be honest, I've never done anything like incredibly innovative. I'm not creating a new technology or a brand new industry. I go and find proven existing business models and proven existing business concepts and strategies, and I go and learn what they are, and I take them and I successfully implement them and I execute on them. That's all I'm doing. I'm looking at successes that other people have had. I'm making them my own. Maybe I'm putting my own style on them, and I'm basically just copying them. And that's what like 99.9% of entrepreneurs should be doing. Because most of the time you're not going to be successful if you go try to innovate and do something totally different. And the great thing is that if you take this approach that I'm talking about, you can still make a ton of money because the world's a huge place. All right, that was a bit of a side tangent. Let's go back to what I was talking about before. What I learned after hiring my first VA is that I could save literally 90% on the labor costs, which allowed me to hire way more people. I was able to hire more people, build the team faster, scale my business faster, and ultimately just make more money. Not only was I able to scale faster because I could hire more people faster and basically just get more work done and service more clients in a shorter amount of time, but I also was able to access a global talent pool. Now, conversely, if I was hiring in my local city and I go and post a job within like a 20-mile radius of where I live, I'm limited to people who are currently looking for jobs within that certain mile radius. Now, if I go and look across the entire world or even a handful of countries, I just 1000x'd my amount of candidates, if not more. The reason this is a good thing is that when it comes to hiring, it's really a numbers game. The more applicants that you get, the more likely you're able to find the best people, and the more likely you're going to be able to build a team of just absolute A players. Conversely, if you're limited to that small radius around where you live because you need someone to commute to where your office is, or even if they're going to work remotely but you're hiring locally, you're limited, you've got a smaller pool of candidates, the likelihood of you finding all A players in your team is just lower. So you can access more people, you're going to find better people, and you can also find them faster and build your team faster. Now, there's a handful of reasons why people do not go this route that I chose. And to be honest, most of them are limiting beliefs. Some people might have a counter argument to everything that I'm saying and be like, oh,
I went and hired someone in the Philippines and they didn't speak English.
Well, that's not everyone. You just happened to hire the wrong person and it didn't work out for you. There's a ton of best practices that I follow and that I teach in a ton of these videos about how to successfully hire people in other countries, how to successfully work with them long term. I have some people in my business that I've hired specifically in the Philippines 7 to 8 years ago. I'm still working with them today. Here's a quick list of those limiting beliefs so you can just squash them, get them out of your head, and get out of your own way. One, people are like, oh, they're not going to speak English. What do I do? The counter argument to that is people speak English everywhere. It's literally not a problem. Two, their accent's going to be too strong. They can't talk to my customers, or it's going to be difficult to communicate with them. Maybe you've never traveled outside the US, but to your surprise, there are a ton of people with very neutral accents that are easy to communicate with. It's honestly not a problem. If you're worried about that, literally just delete that from your brain and move on. Also, the other interesting part of this is that in the Philippines and other countries where there's call centers, oftentimes these companies will have specific team members in the call center who have a job title of accent neutralizer. Their one and only responsibility is to coach everyone that's answering the phone to have a more neutral, more American sounding accent. I'm not even exaggerating. There are people that go to work every day and they're getting trained and coached on how to sound American. So if you're worried about accents, I mean, hopefully that just solves the problem right there for you. This isn't about hiring cheap labor. Sometimes people will say,
oh, you get what you pay for.
In this case, it's not true at all. It's all relative. You get what you relatively pay for. Because in other countries, the cost of living is different. People don't need to make as much money. And in some cultures, people aren't purely profit driven. They don't care about making as much money as humanly possible. If they have enough money to live, if they have enough money to save and be comfortable, oftentimes they're satisfied with that because they value other things in life as well. Sometimes that's hard for Americans to get our heads around. And look, at the end of the day, again, this is not about hiring cheap labor. We only go and find A player professionals who are just as good, if not better, than US counterparts. And when all of this is done correctly, this will be the biggest competitive edge you could possibly have. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the first roles that I initially delegated when building my first business. So for the first role that I ever delegated, honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never hired someone before. I didn't even know what work to give them. I had never put together a job role or done any of this ever. So the first person I hired was really just a generalist. And as I would find things throughout my day that I either didn't like to work on because they were tedious and would make my brain feel like it was melting, or two, I knew that I shouldn't be working on them because they were worth less than my dollar per hour rate. I took all those and I just started delegating them immediately. And I didn't have a full list of stuff lined up, ready to go with this first person. I just hired them. I had an initial batch of stuff. They probably had an easy first couple months. Obviously, they're not complaining about that. And then over time, as as I got more sophisticated, as I studied delegation, as I became a better business owner that was more well-rounded and understood the power and the leverage of hiring people, I was able to give them more work and give them a more structured role. To give you an example of some of the things that I initially delegated to them, the first thing was cold calling. So I was in real estate and I was just cold calling like crazy. I put them on an auto dialer and I just had them make the calls for me. That right there saved a ton of time. I used to spend like over half my day cold calling. It saved a ton of energy. I personally find it very exhausting, and I think most people do, to get on the phone, say the same like talk track or script over and over, get rejected, have people get mad at you. It's very draining. So I was able to save a ton of time for not doing it. I was able to save a ton of energy for not having to do it. And then with that newfound time and energy, I went and did other things. I also gave this person a bunch of very tedious research related tasks that were not rocket science, but had to get done, and that I just absolutely hated doing. I didn't want to spend my life doing it anymore. There was also some email work, some phone related work, and some other admin. Oftentimes when you're getting going, delegation isn't really about hiring these big, like innovative roles where you have everything perfectly planned out. Sometimes you just have to bootstrap, you have to get in the mud, you have to be a little bit more scrappy, and you just delegate whatever you can and you wing it. This is a way better approach than you not doing it at all and being stuck and staying in paralysis by analysis. All right, now let's talk about the good stuff. Here's how I built systems that run my entire company without me and even grow my company without me being present. And that's the part I like the most. It didn't start off this way, but now I'm at the point where in all of my companies, we have playbooks for every single role within the company. And then in those playbooks, we have SOPs documented in Google Docs. We have Loom videos documenting everything. We basically have training manuals that we could give to anyone, which shows them exactly what to do in the role, what their KPIs are, what's expected, how little HR things work like sick days and vacation days and paid time off, stuff like that. Everything is documented to a T. We have it down to a science. All of it's fed into AI as well. They could chat with the AI and ask it questions. And all of the workflows throughout the business are perfectly mapped out. We've removed a ton of bottlenecks and we continue to fine tune those. And we have the right people in the right places with the right skill set and the right experience. This is essentially what you need to do. Now, I'm at a point where I have 100+ people that are working in these workflows. You might just be getting started. You might not have any team members right now, but it really starts with documenting systems and setting up repeatable processes that you can plug people into, and you train them how to do it and you document it. So it's literally a no-brainer. And even like a 4-year-old could figure it out because you've made videos and you've made it so easy to follow, and you tell them what to do in every single situation. And at the end of the day, a lot of roles that we hire within our businesses are repetitive. And because they're repetitive and because you can define every scenario that the person's going to run into, you can map out how they need to respond and what kind of work needs to be done in every scenario, essentially making the role idiot proof. This is what you need to do. Look at your day-to-day, look at the systems that you're working in, package them up, throw them over to somebody else, hire them to do it. Now you have newfound time, go do something else, rinse and repeat. As far as communication rhythms go within my company, we follow a couple of different processes. I try to involve myself personally in as little meetings as humanly possible. Personally, I find meetings to be very draining. Oftentimes they're not necessary. When I can, I'll just get people to send me Loom videos. I also try to cut down on emails as much as possible. But because I'm in the middle of aggressively growing both businesses right now, I do have some set recurring meetings on my calendar with key members of my team. Let me give you some examples. So in my call answering service, it's basically a call center. I have one meeting for 30 minutes a week on Friday with my entire operations team. The cadence of this meeting is as follows. They have a Google Doc that we update each week. I show up to the meeting, they share their screen, we jump right into it, and in 30 minutes, we bang out all the things that they want to discuss. They tee up decisions that need to be made to me with all the relevant information and all the context and give me the pros and cons. I trained everyone to communicate very directly and very succinctly, so I don't have to sit there waiting for someone to articulate themselves for 5 freaking minutes if they could have done it in 5 seconds. And that's an issue I've run into with many people, but can be solved very easily with some proper training. So moral of the story, I show up to the meeting, I have no preparation, they present everything to me in a Google Doc, we bang out all the items items, usually in 30 minutes. Sometimes it might go a little longer if there's some extra stuff to discuss. That's once a week. That covers all the operational stuff that I need to know about in my business. And then what I've been doing most recently, because I have some additional things to work on, I have the main guy who's the operations manager meet with me for another 30 minutes on Monday afternoon. This is more so just like a one-on-one check-in. He's working on some specific projects for me right now. So I do that just to have an extra touch point with him to see what he's done, what he's working on next, what he's accomplished, stuff like that. And then in my other business, which this YouTube channel is about, it's a done-for-you recruitment service where we go out and help you hire offshore A players, usually between $4 to $10 an hour, depending on the role. And we do all the work for you. You work one-on-one with a recruiter. They interview tons of people. They give you recorded interviews to watch, which is like 1,000 times easier than doing the interviews yourself. In that particular business, I have 2 recurring weekly meetings. The first one is very similar to the other one I mentioned with the operations team. So this one I actually do on Tuesday afternoon. This is just how I've set up my particular schedule for a number of reasons. You don't have to do it on the exact days. And I meet with the operations team in that meeting and a couple of other leadership roles. And then we do the same thing. They pull up the Google Doc, they run me through everything. I make a couple of decisions, they give me some updates, and then boom, we're on our way. Usually that lasts between 30 to 45 minutes. And then there's a second meeting on Thursdays with some other key personnel in the company where we go over all of our active client requirements. So if you were to become a client of ours and you go and hire for a specific role, we would discuss your role and the progress of it in that particular meeting. Now that meeting, I'll probably join it like once a month. I don't need to sit in there and get an update on every single client every single week, but I have my team do it so they can centralize communication. They can solve problems that might be going on. Other people can give input on other clients that the other people are working with. It helps a lot with collaboration and it helps us just be really productive as a company. And again, I might join that once a month. Sometimes I don't even join at all. So those are mainly how I'm running the companies from an operational standpoint. Honestly, once a week for 30 to 45 minutes, if you have the right people that know what they're doing and they're trained in place, is plenty sufficient. I wouldn't recommend doing any less. You could do a little bit more, but you don't need to do much more than that. And then other than that, I meet with my sales team every single day for 30 minutes, first thing in the morning. I do training. I take a similar approach where I pull up a Google Doc. I'm leading the meeting. I'm telling them what to do. We do a lot of mindset training. We go over any challenges that we're having. We might do some role playing. We try to maximize as much as we can in a 30-minute time slot before they go into their days and start taking sales calls. My goal is to get the sales team in the right mental frame, get them pumped up, get them focused, remind them of some key mindsets that they need to have going into the sales calls to maximize the probability of selling, and then we'll break and they go into their day. Now on Friday, I'll meet with the sales team from 8 to 9 a.m. So we'll meet for an hour on Friday to do some additional training. The appointment setters and the sales reps are on the call. I might review some sales calls. I'll give some constructive criticism to that particular closer, and everyone on the team gets to learn from it. I've found that these daily meetings with the sales team are absolutely crucial. I do not miss those, as well as the 1 hour on Friday of training. Okay, let's talk about promoting team members to leadership positions, how you should structure this, and what kind of strategic thinking you need to have. So what I always recommend if you're starting off is that you hire for the leadership positions early on, like right away. That's your first hire. Even if the role isn't specifically for operations or leadership, maybe there's like some customer service or account management or whatever it is, it's still good to have that person come in and do some of that work. And then as you grow the team and you hire more people, you can remove the leader from some of that like day-to-day, maybe client fulfillment type of work, and then you plug other people in below them. But the reason it's really helpful to do it this way, in my opinion, is that the operations person or the leader, whoever that first hire is, as they back away from like the day-to-day execution of the work, they already had experience doing it. So that when you hire new people under them and they're managing them, they're coaching them, they're training, they're overseeing them, they already know what that person's day-to-day experience is like because they already did the job themselves. And then also, other than that, if you're bootstrapping a business and this is the first person that you hire, you want the highest quality person humanly possible to help you bootstrap this thing to take as much work off your plate as you can. So those are the two benefits in my mind. Now, you don't have to approach it this way, but I highly recommend it because the more time that you can regain up front, the more time you can invest into building systems, building processes, hiring new people, training them, and really building out your team. So if you have that like really high quality, high caliber A player, more sophisticated person in your company up front. That's going to free up more time. That's ultimately going to just help you scale faster. All right, let's talk about some mistakes that I made when it came to hiring, building the team, all that stuff early on. All right, so I made a ton of mistakes. Hopefully you can learn from these. The first mistake that I initially made was just hiring too cheap. I was really going for like $500 a month people. I even hired some people for like $400 a month. Now, they were happy with it. They were living in like a more rural area of the Philippines outside the city. And to be honest, like they helped me get going. I don't think I would have gotten the momentum or really even like been open-minded to hiring more people if I didn't have good results with them. But now that I've progressed in my career and I realize that investing into good talent pays dividends and is like the best investment ever, I don't recommend hiring cheap. Now, there is a caveat to this. If you really don't have any money and you're tight on cash and you don't have any money to invest into someone for $1,500 or $2,000 a month, then go and do that. Don't stay doing the work yourself. But if you do have the money, just hire the better people. If you have to hire the cheaper people first to get some momentum, make some money and get things going, you can always move them around or even replace them later on with better people. It's much better to hire the cheaper people than to hire no one and get nowhere, obviously. So in addition to not paying high enough salaries, the next mistake I made was not setting clear enough expectations from day one. Better yet, not setting clear enough expectations during the interview before I even hired them. This ultimately led to some less than ideal behaviors and things that just caused headaches and probably could have been mitigated if I was a little bit more firm, more organized, and really just have my ducks in a row in terms of expectation setting up front and early on. I learned this lesson the hard way through having some turnover and some issues with people, but oftentimes that's how we have to learn. We go and make mistakes and then we reflect on them and then we iterate from there. So moral of the story, the clearer you can be with your expectations and the more detailed you can be with those expectations, that's going to really help that person see what things are like from your point of view. They can know what you want. They can know how to make you happy, how to be successful, things like that. All right, let's talk about something that I think I did really, really well and that you should 100% copy. So one thing I always did well was whenever I hire someone, I always genuinely and honest to God think, how can I make this a great experience for this person? How can I give them a good job? How can I make them want to show up and work? So I think there's really two parts to this. One is just your company culture and how you are as a leader and how you approach leading people. You know, I've had some jobs when I was younger and I absolutely hated working in those jobs. I did not like the people that I worked for. They were demeaning, they were rude, they didn't give two shits about me. And, that left a really bad taste in my mouth. So naturally, as an employer now, I think I reflect on those experiences and I'm just like, well, I don't want to do that to someone else. That was terrible. So I try to do the exact polar opposite. This ends up coming through in a lot of little things that I do, but I really believe that just having this simple mental frame has allowed me to create a good company culture that people want to work in, and we're able to retain good people who like working with each other, and we just go into an upward spiral. Okay, the second thing I think I've done really, really well, which you should also copy, comes from the understanding that all human beings are selfish. I'm selfish, you're selfish, everybody's selfish. And look, that's okay as long as you understand it and you act from a place of understanding that. Now, how does that apply to what I'm talking about here? How does that apply to building a team, hiring people? Well, think about it. If someone's selfish and they're working for you, you need to make sure that their selfish goals and desires are being met and all the boxes that they want to check in terms of what they want out of their career, what their goals are, literally everything from A to Z. You need to make sure that you're meeting those as an employer. Otherwise, you're going to have turnover. You're going to have people that are silent quitting where they're really just not doing that good of a job, or they just end up doing the absolute bare minimum to not get fired. And why would you want that? So what you do is you recognize everyone is selfish. That's how human beings are. That's literally how we're wired down to our DNA. And now with that understanding, when you go to create their role and mainly their compensation, because, people aren't working for you just because they like you, they're getting paid. You need to structure their compensation in such a way that you can incentivize certain behaviors and disincentivize other behaviors. So the way that you structure people's compensation will completely dictate how they behave. Yes, you might have some outliers here and there that are just still rock stars, even if you don't give them the best compensation package. Don't bet on that. You need to do this correctly. Let me give you a quick example. Okay, so there's a sales guy that I just hired like literally yesterday who's going to start on Monday. And when I was meeting with him, I was like, so like, why are you leaving your current job? And the net of it is he said that his current employer had put a cap on the amount of commissions that he could make. Now, to me, I instantly was like, that's completely idiotic. Why would you ever want to cap your salesperson's commissions? If you do that, the behavior that you are literally incentivizing through the structure that you set up is for them to go make as much as they can on the commissions and then do nothing afterwards. Why would they do that? They're selfish. They're in a sales role because they want to make money, and you just funneled their behavior in a direction that does not benefit you. Completely stupid. A sales role is the easiest compensation structure, motivation mechanism, if you want to call it, to think about. You're hiring a salesperson to drive revenue for the business. If the salesperson is not incentivized to drive revenue for the business, they ain't driving any revenue for the business. So putting a cap on their commissions is completely idiotic. You would shoot yourself in the foot. And I don't know why those people did that. So for me, when I go into a relationship with the salesperson, I'm like, all right, look, here's how we're going to help you make an absolute boatload of money. When I have conversations with them about anything that we're working on, even though it's for my company, I'm talking about them. Here's how you can make more money. Here's how you can get better at what you're doing. Here's the goals that we should set for you that you can strive towards. I'm getting them excited about their future, about how much money they're going to make, about their success. I don't talk about me. I know that they don't care about me, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, humans are selfish. We need to recognize it, and then we need to set up compensation accordingly. So implement those two things. You're going to have a way better time with your business. Make sure you have sound company culture where people want to work there. And then two, make sure compensation is set up properly. Otherwise, you're going to disincentivize the behaviors that you want. So after taking these approaches for many, many years, now I'm at the point where I have 3 different businesses, 100+ people all over the world, and I have very fundamentally sound, structurally stable systems and processes with highly trained, highly competent individuals plugged into those, running them. Their compensation is set up in a way that they're incentivized to grow the business. They're incentivized to help retain other people on the team. Everyone's pushing in the right direction. Everyone has the same motivation. All of that just so happens to align with my personal motivations. And I'm at the point where if I don't want to work for the day, I have the option to not work. I don't have to do anything. And even if I don't show up and work, all the clients are serviced, all the clients are happy, not just serviced, but very happy. The sales team continues to take sales calls, new clients continue to sign up, problems are addressed, everything is going, the machine is working. Now, personally, I like to work. I like to build my businesses. Maybe you can tell that from watching this video. This is not a chore for me. This is not a job that I've signed up for that I don't want to be at. So I still choose to work. I like business. It's basically just sport for me now. I've taken care of all of my financial needs in my life. I'm happy. I'm comfortable. Making money now for me, it's really just a sport. It's a way to keep tabs on how I'm doing and how much I'm winning. Usually for once a year, I'll take off the entire month of December. I'll go and travel to Australia, I'll go to Asia, I'll go around the world, and I'll just unplug. And as I leave for that month, I don't completely unplug. I might check like some messages like once a day. That's really for like 10 to 20 minutes. And some days I won't check them at all. And then I'll come back after the month, and guess what? Nothing broke, and my business is actually bigger. Isn't that why you really started a business? You obviously didn't start the business to be stuck in it, to be a slave to your clients. You started it for freedom. You took on this risk to make more money. And if you're not at that point right now, I have good news for you. It's really not rocket science. You need to do what I said at the beginning of the video. You need to copy what other people are doing that already works. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You need to get good at delegation, hiring, managing and creating a good culture. You need to be good at setting up structurally sound systems with multiple personnel working in them so that you have redundancy. And if someone quits or they're sick or they want to go on vacation, things don't break down. That's what I mean by a structurally sound system. At the end of the day, I've successfully built 3 businesses that make me money where I can travel, I can take time off. I'm not stressed out all the time, and it's amazing. So that's how I built a remote team that successfully builds my business without me. And some of the big mistakes that you can avoid yourself if you're trying to do the same thing. If you want help building a remote team of A players, instead of just running on the hamster wheel of hiring and firing the wrong fits over and over, we place fully vetted, fully interviewed remote talent for $4 to $10 an hour into your business so you can hire right the first time. At this point, we've placed thousands of trained, fully vetted remote employees for sales, operations, marketing, literally any kind of role that you would want to hire for business owners that want to step out of the day-to-day. So if you're ready for that kind of support, and you want to finally step out of the day-to-day, scale your business, and build a structurally sound team for literally 90% less than you would have to pay if you hired locally, click the link in the description to book a call.